Hi, this is Jill from Fabric Garden, subbing in for Julie this month. So in month 2, last month you only had to make 1 block, but this month you are going to be making 4 blocks. So some of the units you already made similar units last month. So this month you will be making square in a square with the folded corner method, and you will also be making flying geese, which you made before. So you'll just follow your instructions the same way you did last month, and you'll be making those units. This month you get a little taste of foundation paper piecing. And here's my block. You are going to be using foundation paper, which we've included in your kit, to make these blocks. You're going to be making, what does it say? You're going to be making 8 units that have this green pop on the end, and 8 units that all 3 sides around the green triangle are the background fabric. So I wanted to talk a little bit about foundation paper piecing. I've often had people say, you either love it or you hate it. And I like to say, you either love it or you haven't had enough, you haven't done it enough, or you haven't been taught correctly, because it really is a great technique. It is perfection when done correctly, because you're just having to sew on the lines on the paper. You always have your beautiful sharp points, and I love it. I almost always have, right now I have 2 paper pieced quilts going. I just love how they come out and how beautiful they are. You can really, this is a very basic, simple design, a great place to try out paper piecing, but you can do some incredibly amazing quilts that would be almost impossible to do with standard piecing. So in your kit, we have copied the foundation paper for you. And so there's 2 blocks per piece of paper. When I trim the paper, because I don't want to work with a whole piece of paper at my sewing machine, I don't actually cut on the lines. I just take my scissors and I cut it out, just rough cut it out. So all these really dark, heavy lines, those are my sewing lines. This lighter line around the outside edge, that's out to my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So when you're doing foundation paper piecing, it's kind of a upside down, backward kind of thing. So this is the side with the lines, is the side that you sew on. The side with no lines is the side that you put your fabric on. So you're always kind of working upside down with your fabric underneath the paper. It feels a little odd when you start out. So it is helpful, of course, I like to have a little glue stick, a fabric glue stick, but you can also use pins. I like to have an 1/4 ruler, but if you don't have that, you could use a piece of cardstock and a regular ruler, a pair of scissors for cutting my threads, and then of course a rotary cutter. And at the very end, I'm going to need a ruler for trimming the block, and you'll either need an iron or you could also use a seam roller. So I've got a little mess going here. I'm going to clean up down here. And I'm going to move the camera so it's more on my cutting mat so that you've got a little closer view. Let's see if I can actually be successful doing that. Okay. There we go. So I've got my different fabrics. This is my when you look at your piece, you're going to see that it is numbered A1 through A5. So I like to organize my pieces. This is A1, this is A2 and A3, and in 8 of the blocks it will also be A5. This is my A4, and in 8 of the blocks this light green is my A5. So I have 2 different A5s. Now it can be helpful if you have a light box, but if you don't, you can hold this up to the light. So I'm going to start out, and my first piece is going to need to go right side up on the back side of my paper. So I'm going to hold it up, see the light, and I'm going to put a little dab of glue on there. And I'm just going to place this piece. Sometimes I'll place the piece where I already have my 1/4 inch. I'm holding it up so I can see. So what I'm looking at when I hold it up to the light, let me rub it so it's glued down now. When I hold this up to the light, and I hold it up with the lined side facing me, and I look at it, and what I'm looking for is, does the edge of this fabric cover all the lines of a section A1 triangle by at least 1/4 inch? It also needs to cover out into the seam allowance. So you can see I've got little corners sticking out, so I'm covered out to there. So I am going to make it easy for me to line up piece 2. At this point, you could use your piece of cardstock, or this is an 1/4 plus ruler. This is A1, this is A2. I'm gonna put my thin side of my 1/4 plus ruler on that line, and I'm gonna fold it back. And then if you're using cardstock, leave that cardstock in there so you've got a lip. And we want to trim so there's a 1/4 inch. So if you've got your 1/4 ruler, it's got a little lip on it. If you, just making sure that I'm still lined up since I've been moving it around while I'm talking. My glue isn't sticking very well, but probably because so I'm going to put a little more glue and stick it on. I'm holding it up to the light so that I can see what I'm doing here, that I've got everything covered. Okay, and I do. There we go. Okay, so I have folded back on the line. I've got a 1/4 inch from the fold, and I'm going to trim that little piece off. Sometimes I will see people sew their seam and then trim, but really the 1/4 ruler is meant to trim before you sew, because now I have a line to line up my piece number 2. So I can line up my piece number 2. Now, again, and now just like regular sewing, the first piece is right side up, but like anytime you're quilting, you're going to put right sides together now. And I am making sure that I have a little edge sticking over the edge of the paper. I'm lined up with my trimmed line. At this point, if you would like to pin, you can, but I've been doing this so long, I just hold it and take it to my machine. And I'm going to start a little bit before the line. I'm going to sew right on this line between A1 and A2, and I'm going to come off 2 or 3 stitches after the line. And I do like to use a stitch length of about no bigger than 1.8. So let's see. I'll move this over here. It's not the greatest view of my sewing machine, but I'm just sewing on the line here. And finding my pedal down here. Okay. Glasses. So super simple. Now I'm just sewing on the line. Okay. I'm going to cut my threads. And so I sewed right on this line, and you can see I've got a nice 1/4 inch there, and I can go to the ironing board and press this, or I'm just going to finger press here so I don't walk away from you. So I've just given that a finger press. I just want to make sure there's no additional fold, that it's nicely pressed. Now, so that's piece A1 and A2. Now I want to put A3. So what I want to do is I want to trim where I'm going to sew next. So I'm going to lay my ruler or your piece of cardstock on this line between A1 and A3, fold it back, and put my add 1/4 ruler, or I could use my regular ruler with the 1/4 inch lined up with the fold, and I'm going to trim that off. So again, now I have a nice place to add my piece A3. So I'm going to add that. I'm making sure that this piece is slightly off the edge of the fabric of the paper, lined up with my trimmed line. Pin if you would like. Now I'm going to sew on the line. Just take me a second here. Okay, so I've sewn on the line. So I've now sewn the line between A1 and A3. You can see my sewing on the back, and I could go to the iron and press this. And if you're new to this, it's always a good idea to hold it up to the light and make sure that your fabric is covering not just this A3 piece, but all the way out beyond the seam allowance. Okay, so now I'm going to trim for A4, and so I'm going to fold back on this line. Now I've got a little stitching out here that inhibits my folding back. I'm just going to pull that stitching off the paper gently, put my ruler, fold back, and trim. So I've got where I'm going to lay piece A4. Okay, so A4 is the little flower, and I'm going to center that there, right on that trimmed line, pin or not pin, whichever you're comfortable, and now I'm going to sew on my line between A1 and A4. Okay, so again, you could take it to the ironing board. I'm just going to finger press here. So, whoops, sorry, you're not in a good view there. There we go, I've pressed that over. Now I'm going to trim for A5. So again, I'm just going to gently pull those stitches off the paper, put my ruler or cardstock along that line, fold back, 1/4 inch from the fold, and trim. Now here at this A5, on 8 of the blocks, you will be adding another light background, right sides together, or you're going to add your light green, right sides together. So I'm going to make one with the light. I'm going to put that on. Line that up with my trim, pin or hold, And sewing. I might trim up some of my little threads here so I don't have to do it later in the block. I just take a look and give those a trim off. Okay, so I've got that. Take it and press it. Now you've got this funny looking piece. And all we have to do is flip it over. Now, I do not want to cut on the heavy bold line. That's the size the block's going to be. I need to trim a 1/4 inch away, so I need to trim on this thinner line. And I'm just going to use my ruler and line that up. And you know, the paper can be a little slipperier. The ruler, you know, the Creative Grids has got the no slip grid on it, but that really is designed for fabric. So I am careful that I'm holding that firmly while I'm trimming, so it's not going to move on me. And I'm going to trim all 4 sides. And now I've got my block. So you will be making 8 that has a green, a rose, and 3 of the background. And then you will be making 8 that have the green, 2 backgrounds, the rose, and a lighter green. So you've got 2 different, it's the same paper, but 2 different layouts. And you'll see that when you look at your pattern. And this will be what your block looks like. And you will be making 4 blocks that are the same. So if you have any questions about foundation paper piecing, feel free to give me a call at the shop, or come on in. I love foundation paper piecing. It feels a little confusing at first because you're sewing on the paper and you can't see your fabric. We also have a wonderful video out on our YouTube. So we do have a YouTube channel. It's Fabric Garden CA. And in the search bar, if you just type in foundation paper piecing or how to foundation paper piece, you'll see a full video, a little, you know, that I've got a little bit more complicated of a block that I'm doing and showing you, you know, making that block start to finish. So you can reference here, you can reference our other video out on YouTube, or you can give me a call or come on in if you need a little personal help with this. So once you have all your pieces made, just like you'll just follow the pattern and you will do, you know, you'll have your center of the block pieces and you will have some pieces that just have your 2 flying geese. And these pieces are going to sandwich in between your paper piece, and then you'll have 3 rows that you will sew together, and that's pretty detailed right here in the pattern. So give paper piecing a chance. I know it'll feel weird, but you're going to do this 16 times, so you should be pretty good at it by the end, and I hope that you will end up loving it as much as I do.